Hey everyone, welcome back to Talking Sense. I'm Ben. Happy New Year. It's January the 7th. It's freezing cold, dead of the middle of winter. So I thought, let's have a look at Simone Andreoli's Eterno. New Year. I hope you all had a great New Year's and holiday period and everyone's happy and healthy. Today, we're going to look at Simone Andreoli's Eterno. If you're not too sure about Simone Andreoli, probably the most famous perfume from the house is Malibu, Party in the Bay, which I have not smelled it myself actually, but from what I gather, it's a really good alternative to something like Creed Virgin Island Water. It's a really hyped and well-respected coconut fragrance. I think coconut and lime. So yeah, it's pretty well respected. But yeah, I've not heard of much else from that house. I came across this in a trade, and at first I was a bit disappointed, but now I'm not. So the presentation is not like crazy amazing for this fragrance. It's pretty simple, especially for the price. You just get like a kind of slip box. It's from the Diario Offlativo collection, which is apparently notes taken from the perfumer's diary, and you get on the back of the bottle is printed like his diary, and you get a card as well with the translation. It's all very pretentious stuff. But yeah, what does the fragrance actually smell like? So to talk about it a little bit more, the notes in Eterno are bergamot, citrus leaves, black pepper, opoponax, heliotrope, labdanum, incense, fir resin, cypriol oil, leather and sandalwood. Now that's really woody, obviously, like just from going from those notes you can guess that's really woody. It's quite resinous. You got labdanum in there to give it more resin and some sweetness. You got cypriol oil, which is a dark, dense oil, one of my favorites actually. Common weedy sort of grass from India, but it's very dirty. Get a kind of, you can use it in to make like dirty leather accords and even like oud accords. It's quite common, but I really like it. If you smell it by itself, it's a very earthy, sort of animalic, leathery facet, but overriding is this dirty, earthy darkness. So you can imagine this is quite dark, quite an earthy, quite a resinous scent, right? What you might also imagine, if you're familiar with the note listing, is that's quite close to Interlude by Amouage. And it's, at first go, that's what disappointed me about this fragrance. So let's spray it and let's talk about it. The sprayer on this is absolutely insane. It literally, you could shower with this, like check it out. It's literally like having a shower in perfume, but that's all right, I guess. It's quite a monster of a fragrance though, so to be honest, you don't need more than one spray. Now, let's get into it then. What does it smell like? I mean, I don't need to get close. This fragrance is huge. It would absolutely fill the room easy. Right off the top, you get this bergamot and the citrus leaves. The citrus leaves are really well done in this, because it gives it a citrus vibe, but it isn't your typical citrus vibe. It's greener, a little bit more herbal, and it's a bit subtler and sets the citruses back somewhat. So they're not like bergamot, citrus, wham. It's more like a very subtle green herbal citrus vibe that sits on the top. I really like that about it. Otherwise, underneath that, you get what smells a lot like Interlude. Straight off the bat, you get this, and that's straight away. I was really disappointed not because I don't like Interlude, I just don't need more Interlude in my life. So I traded this, and it was completely blind. I traded with a fragrance I don't like, so I didn't really mind. But I was like, oh, it smells like Interlude. I've got a bottle of Interlude. I've got a bottle of an Interlude clone. I don't need another Interlude. But it moves down its own path. It takes a few seconds, but it starts moving down its own path. By the end, they're quite separate fragrances. So yeah, one of the things that sets it apart from Interlude is those citrus leaves that I just talked about. But then you've got black pepper. Now I can smell that. To me, it's not a strong peppery scent. It's but it's dirty. It makes this dirtier fragrance. To be honest, I used black pepper before for that exact reason as well, like to make sense dirtier without necessarily making them spicy and sort of peppery. And I feel like that's what they're doing here. They're just using a touch of black pepper just to make things a bit dirtier, a bit darker. And then for me, the next two things that you can really smell are the cypriol oil. Really is strong in this for me, and it's earthy, has a slight aromatic leather facet to it, but to me it's overridingly earthy and smells like sort of rotten wood and mud. And the next thing that sets it apart, say, because otherwise this is smelling a lot like Interlude. You've got a very subtle smoke, you've got some Apoponax, very resinous incense, very thick resinous incense right in the middle here. The smoke is really gentle, so it's more like fresh incense than burning incense, because although there is smoke, to me it's tucked right back and it's quite sweet, so it's not a cloying over the top kind of oppressive smoke, but it's just a subtle sort of almost like smouldering smoke above it, quite a resinous incense. And yeah, like that all smells very much like Interlude, with that kind of resinous incense, a lot of dark woods, a bit of smoke, right? But what sets it apart is their heliotrope, and the heliotrope gives it this quite big velvety sweetness in between, and it's very smooth and smooth things out, and makes things very, there's no edges to this fragrance. Takes all the edges off and just makes things very smooth. Doesn't really lift it up too much, so it's still a very dark fragrance. I would say if it wasn't for the heliotrope and the citrus leaves, this would be in the gutter. But because of the citrus leaves, they just pull it up gently, and then the heliotrope just kind of helps keep it like afloat. But it's still a very dark, dirty fragrance. And it's very woody, but say that heliotrope really sets it apart from Interlude. And there are moments for me when this gets a little bit too sweet. About now, I can smell it and it's like, oh, are you sure this, because it's a very thick, dense fragrance, and it's quite heavy. Obviously it's great for like really cold winter, and it will cut through anything. But when you first spray it in like you're indoors, like now, you start thinking like, this is like coming on a bit strong, and that sweetness is going to be real kind of cloyy in that middle resinous dense area. But it chills out just when you think it's going to go too far. It kind of dials itself back and starts sitting down a little bit and calming down in the fragrance, and then it gets really nice, and it mixes with the cypriol, which is a very earthy, like I say, very earthy dark brown scent. You definitely kind of, if you were going to give it a colour, dark brown, like almost black dark brown kind of scent, and the Apoponax and all those resins starts feeling a little bit caramelized. It starts giving it like this caramelized wood sort of vibe in the middle, and I say this is where it starts sort of moving. An Interlude obviously continues in one direction, and this really veers off, because you get this kind of the citrus leaves start showing up a little more, because the thing is the darker this gets and the more kind of resinous and sort of caramelized it starts becoming, they're just kind of being highlighted by that big kind of underscore of sort of resiny darkness. So they work really well with this fragrance. They just keep it like afloat, and with that kind of resinous kind of caramelized middle, they keep things just alive, and I think they're really great. As the fragrance develops, that's more or less for me what happens. It just gets slightly more caramelized wood as it goes on, and everything kind of tones down. It's quite a linear fragrance, doesn't really kind of develop too crazy. It just gets sort of more sort of caramelized, a little bit more woody, and a little bit more greenery comes out. I notice like very late into the dry down, I get very herbal aspects of it, and I get something that to me smells very, very much like oregano. It's quite nice. It's quite unusual, but I like it. But right now, that's nowhere near. Right now, we've got this smooth, velvety, heliotrope and sort of cloudy, fluffy, resinous incense and woods, and that's really it. But it's really good. Say if you're familiar with interlude, think interlude, but sort of more caramelized with a touch more sweetness, and a little hint of a very green, subtle, almost herbal citrus. And that's kind of where you're at. If you haven't smelt interlude, I say it's a little bit more difficult, but say think resinous, dark, woody, and the facets that I just mentioned. I think it's really great. I think for this time of year, it's perfect. So to talk a little bit about that, when would you wear this? Only ever winter and autumn, perhaps. You could wear it in the autumn, and I think it would work because it's all those resins. Like there's that kind of piney fir kind of vibe that from the start. The citrus really works because it's green and kind of still has a kind of woody facet. And you've got all those, like, say, all the resins in the middle and the incense. So for autumn, it's going to work. But for me, this is cold weather. If you wore this in the summer, people would murder you. This is the sort of thing where if I got on the tube in the height of summer, I would expect to get assault and battery. This is not for summer months. You would kill yourself and everyone around you. It's absolutely a nuclear performer. It will fill a room with that one spray although that one spray is quite big, it'll easily fill the room with that. I find myself getting a little bit kind of nose blind to it. I gave it to a friend of mine to try last time he was here, and I left the room and I couldn't really smell it at the time because he'd been wearing it for like an hour and I couldn't really smell it. And I left the room to make a cup of tea, and when I came back, it was like bang, hit me again as soon as I walked in the room. So this fills the room. It's a really big fragrance. It's not one for being shy about. Say this is one that introduces you to the room. In terms of masculine and feminine, it's definitely fairly heavily masculine in my eyes. There's not a lot to pull it back. It's slightly more feminine than say like interlude because it's got that heliotrope, it's got that citrus leaves that just kind of sort of pull it back a little bit more unisex, but to me, this is still very masculine. I do think a woman could wear it. I think this would be really, really sexy on a woman because of those kind of gentler aspects, like that heliotrope, that's quite sweet. That citrus is quite kind of lively and sort of happy. And then you've got these kind of lovely dark resinous woods that are like kind of dark and mysterious, a little bit dirty underneath that. I think it would be really sexy on a woman. But just, I think you'd have to be confident with wearing fragrances which are kind of masculine. I'm sure if you're okay with that, I think it's well worth a shot. Give it a sample. And say it's more about just confidence with this fragrance. But I think like that goes for men as well, because it's not a shy fragrance. This is not fragrance that you're going to put on and people are going to go, oh, I can sort of smell perfume around it. Like, no, like you're going to smell, and people are going to notice it. So yeah, it's a really big fragrance, nuclear performer, really great. I like to dress it down. I think like in terms of like dress it up or down, I think it's quite a cash scent. I mean, you could dress it up because it's perfectly good quality. It's really nice in that regard. But I like to dress it down. I like those the kind of darker, rougher, kind of dirtier black pepper, that kind of just cash kind of scent. I think it's really good. I think it's really nice. It is a little expensive for what it is. But in general, I think it's really good. That's Simone Andreoli's Eterno from the Diaro Offlativo collection. Yeah, it's really nice. Check it out if you can get a sample. If you're really into like interlude and stuff like that, but you'd like to smell something that goes in a slightly different direction, I think you'd be interested. Otherwise, if you like woods, resins, darker scents, I think you would be really interested. Or if that's something you're looking for the winter, I think you'd be really interested. It's really nice. Bit expensive, but really good. Say the quality is there, so I'm kind of okay with that. So yeah, thanks for watching. It's Talk of Sense. I'm Ben. Subscribe if you like. Nice one.